Hey, welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president and attorney for Texas Values. I emphasize the attorney part a little bit more because I was in Lubbock this week for an important court case. I'll talk about that in a little bit later in the show. I just got back from the Texas Capitol, right? You would think, am I like, a holograph here? I mean, am I, kind of getting into some type of contraption to move quickly? No, it's a vehicle that I drive in. I was having some fun with that before we started the show. But look, I mean, a lot of times during this time of year, our work is on the go and on the move, and you got to adjust. By the way, we're going to be out in Irving. The city of Irving has a big vote tonight that relates to rezoning to allow for the Sands casinos to set up a casino in that area. That ain't going to happen, or at least we're going to try to stop it. So we've got Megan Benton from our team that's hustling up there to be with our good friend Cheryl Bean and hundreds of other people that have been activated and engaged on this issue. But a lot of the focus is around what's happening at the state capitol. And we've got a new friend that's at the capitol this session. I mean, she's an old friend, but she's new to being at the capitol, so it's like a new friend at the capitol. You see where I'm going? But I'm excited to have her as a guest today on our show. And she's been on the show before, but not in her new role. So Nurse Vanessa Savage is going to be our guest today on the Texas Values Report. And her new role is president of Protecting Texas Children. So this is an organization that she has formed and started so she can use the experiences that she's had to do good work for other people. You may know a little bit about her work and background. The past couple of years, she's been thrust into the spotlight when she exposed the illegal Medicaid fraud that Texas Children's Hospital was engaging in to cover up the work that they were doing. I call it work. Probably a better way to describe it, in my opinion, that related to kids and gender ideology and having them transition or try to. And we know a lot of those things have really taken up a lot of media attention and been of interest and been of concern. But she just about ended up in jail as people started coming after her because they didn't like that she was telling the truth. And as a result of that, she lost her job. She was fired. We'll talk a little bit more detail about that. So obviously God had other plans for her, including being on the show today. Vanessa, welcome to the Texas Values Report.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Absolutely. And we get to see you more now. I mean, we saw you a little bit before, but, you're becoming having a regular presence at the Texas Capitol where we are quite often. And I'm excited about that. We spent some time with you at the end of last year related to that, some prep work. You got to spend a little bit of time with our team, get to know some different facets of a nonprofit organization, but also get a little bit of taste of what it might be like. But until you're actually doing it, it's really hard to prepare completely or to know what it's going to be like doing work at the state capitol. But I think that you've jumped in and really done quite well, right? I mean, not everyone can testify before an elected body. Not everyone can get in front of, and there are cameras all over the place these days now, particularly in legislative hearings, and know that you're in the spotlight. But you had a little bit of training going on with that. The last couple of years with some of the courageous work that you're doing. I want to start the show too. I know some people may know a little bit about your background with Texas Children's Hospital, but they may not know about the organization you started, Protecting Texas Children. Tell us a little bit about that organization and why it was so important for you to start.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I tell everyone that Texas Values was absolutely instrumental. Last year when I was, after I had been fired from the hospital, Texas Values really set me up for success. And I was able to gain a lot of valuable experience learning from each of you and watching the work that you do every day. So that was such a valuable experience for me. So I can't thank you enough. But as you said, I am now the president and founder of Protecting Texas Children. I'm something that I'm deeply, deeply passionate about and excited about. Our mission is to safeguard the innocence of children by affirming biological truth so that every child can fulfill their God-given potential. And so a lot of my work is here in Austin at the state capitol, testifying and pushing policies and legislation that will continue to protect kids. And so we've seen a number of bills this legislative session by senators and representatives alike that have been really positive. For example, stopping just the pornographic materials in school libraries by Senator Paxton. That was something that came a couple of weeks ago that I had the privilege of testifying in favor of. Just so many valuable pieces of legislation that will contribute to furthering the protections for kids in our state. So I'm very, very excited to be here and to partner with Texas Values also in that end.
Well, look, it's great to have you a part of it. Okay, before we go any further in the show, I'm going to do something, take the liberty on my phone for people that are out there that are watching the feed live. And I'm going to encourage people, if you're watching it, to share this. And let me get to the live feed on my phone so I can do that. And so we can have more people a part of this discussion. There we go. It's now on my personal page. So we get more people a part of this in the audience to hear and experience this important conversation that we just started and we're about to have in more detail. Vanessa, I was at the Capitol earlier this morning. It's so interesting. I've been involved in this work for over 20 years. And so, I know I'm probably going to run into more people, or people might recognize me, than your average person, but I still enjoy it. And I do think that it gives people confidence when they see leaders like you and I there when they come to the Capitol. They may only come, every so often. I walked into the building this morning to the state Capitol, and my longtime friend, Matt Sharp, who works for Alliance Defending Freedom, was there, and I kind of snuck up behind him just to have a little bit of fun with him. But he's probably going to be at the Capitol, 4 or 5 times during the legislative session. And so when he's in town, though, I want to make him, feel welcome, but I also want to connect with him. And so 20 years into this, I still get a lot more, juice, if you will. I get excited. I get, really pumped up when I'm there and I see people that are involved in our work that are friendly faces, right? And they're not always the same. The issues might change a little bit, people that have a connection with these issues. And I imagine you're going to experience that more and more when you spend time at the Capitol. People are going to recognize you. They remember some of the work you did over the past couple of years. And when they see you there, they're going to feel more confident about, oh my gosh, we're probably going to have a better chance to get things done this session, because I know every time I show up at the Capitol, Vanessa's there. And I talk about it a lot. Government belongs to those who show up. It's sort of a catchphrase or a tagline, but it's based on truth. If you're not in the building, you're limited at what you can do to influence the process and be a part of it. Now, some people have a personal connection to these issues, like you do. Some people, like myself, I've got some personal connections to a variety of issues, but the thrust of my work and our team is the background, the experience, and being able to tell some of those stories and talk about why the bills are important and things of that nature. But you've got to testify several times. I mean, we're just, halfway through March, and I think you've had several opportunities to show your skills, including, I believe, on Tuesday when Senate Bill 619 was before the Senate committee, and this is about conscience protection for people in the medical field primarily, something you know a little bit about. Tell us about how that testimony went and why that bill is so important for you.
Yes, well, SB 619, authored by Senator Kevin Sparks, is, as you said, the Healthcare Conscience Protection Act. And look, this is a very deeply personal issue for me in particular. This legislation is seeking to protect medical professionals who are wanting to abide by their deep religious or ethical beliefs in the workplace. And so the reality is that we as a state need to incentivize and we need to reward healthcare workers, healthcare professionals who don't want to check their beliefs at the door when they walk into work, who have a deep moral backbone that they want to abide by when they walk into work every day. And so I know a lot about that. But aside from that, I just want to say that this legislation would impact hundreds of thousands of people in the state of Texas. The healthcare industry is the largest employment sector in the state of Texas. Over 1.5 million jobs are represented, and in the Houston Medical Center alone, there are over 100,000 people employed at the Houston Medical Center. And I can provide testament to that because I worked in the Texas Medical Center for a number of years, and it's a massive hub. People come from all over the globe to be treated by the best of the best. And so this bill truly would impact hundreds of thousands of people. but it's deeply personal for me because many people may know that I was fired from Texas Children's Hospital for blowing the whistle against the Medicaid fraud. But what people may not know, another aspect of this story, is that weeks before I went public with my testimony about the fraud, I submitted a religious accommodation request to my supervisor because I could no longer play a role in the care of children confused about their sex at the clinic that I was working in. And I explained in this letter that I sent to Human Resources, I sent this to my supervisor, explaining in detail how my religious beliefs conflict with the work that I had been assigned to do in the clinic. And I hoped and expected that the hospital would honor my beliefs and my desire to just transfer internally to a different department, which is a very reasonable request that many people request for different reasons to be transferred to different departments. And so what ended up happening, though, is the hospital ignored my request. They stalled and they provided very little communication on updating me as to the status of this request to transfer. And at the end of the day, I was fired. And it was really, really hard because not only was it retaliation for coming forward to expose the evil that was going on and the harming of children that was going on in the hospital, but it was also discrimination against me as a Christian, as a believer in Christ, for seeking to abide by those deep convictions in the workplace. And so I think it's important because an example I always use is if there's an operation happening and the surgeon is about to cut someone open in the operating room, and there's a nurse or a tech in the room that is observing the surgeon who's about to perform a huge procedure on an unconscious person. And the nurse observes that the surgeon is intoxicated. You want a nurse and a tech who is going to stop the procedure from happening because the patient is now at risk. And that requires an individual with a deep courage and with a moral backbone and with the ability to say, stop, like you are going to harm this patient if you continue. And so those kind of people are the kind of people that we want to reward for speaking out. We want to reward and incentivize and ultimately retain that employment sector because it represents hundreds of thousands of people in the state.
Well, there's no question about the scale of it, right? The size of the medical field. And you and I both born and raised, grew up in Houston. We're very well aware of it. And a lot of other people are, but I think sometimes people don't realize that if they've not had a medical procedure there or they've not had some type of serious condition that required some of the specialty. But yes, people come from all over the world, certainly all over the state, for Texas Children's Hospital, Baylor College of Medicine, Memorial Hermann. I mean, all these other, incredible places. I remember as a kid, I went on a field trip where they showed us where they performed open heart surgery. And I'm forgetting the name of the facility. You probably would remember it. But so the touches that community has with not only people in the field, but people's lives all across the world. And they're doing great things all the time, cutting edge things that are saving so many lives and improving lives on a daily basis. So you would want people, to your point, that are grounded in certain principles. And certainly with the size of all that, there's got to be places where people can fit in if there's an issue of conscience, and that should be respected. I mean, people are, particularly if you're going to be working in that field, you're also going to draw employees from all across the world who's going to have different backgrounds and maybe different faith beliefs. We're talking with Vanessa Savage. She is the president of Protecting Texas Children. She also, you might hear her referred to as Nurse Vanessa Savage because she's been a wonderful and successful and a seasoned pediatric nurse for many years before being fired by Texas Children's Hospital. And I remember when that played out last year, because it's not uncommon for people to ask for a religious accommodation. It's federal law. The U.S. Supreme Court has over and over indicated that this is how the First Amendment of the Constitution works, and that there are ways to respect and accommodate specific religious beliefs to allow people to transfer to another division. But you weren't just any employee, right? I mean, the Texas Children's Hospital, very well aware of the courageous things that you did. They didn't see it that way. We certainly did. And but I also thought, surely they would probably not do something like that to bring more pressure on them, but they did, right? And I think, I think a lot of people have concerns about these issues moving forward, but in the short term, we gave you an opportunity to come work for us for a little while, which we certainly enjoyed. Now you're in a position to talk about your experience and to share it with the legislature, not just for yourself. While that was been important, and it still is important, you know that there are other people that never came forward or not talking about it publicly and are frightened to death to say anything. And I think when we have these type of state laws and protections in place, they don't have to fight some of the battles that you've already fought and others have fought. They can have that protection in place so no one has to go through what you went through and in many ways are still trying to get resolved.
Yeah, the reality is that no one should have to choose between their conscience and their career. And I got very emotional during my testimony a couple of days ago in the Senate.
And I'm sorry, I almost forgot. Ashley, can we play that clip of her testifying?
No one should have to choose between their faith and their career. Medical professionals possessing a strong moral compass display courage in the midst of cowardice to speak the truth, making their workplace safer and the lives of their patients better. These are qualities that any medical institution should incentivize and reward, not retaliate against. SB 619 seeks to safeguard healthcare providers from being compelled to participate in medical procedures that conflict with their moral beliefs, so that no one in the state of Texas will ever face the reality that I did of choosing between their career and their conscience. Thank you.
Bravo. Good job. Look, a lot of people are watching. This is a very important piece of legislation. But, I get this way too. And I imagine it's more so for you being such a personal issue, but you're in the middle of testifying. There are a lot of people around, and it just, sort of comes all over you that how important these things are, but, how close they are to your heart as well.
Yeah, and the reality is that, it's a very difficult decision for anyone who's thinking about coming forward or who's not wanting to participate in offering any kind of healthcare service due to the fact that they have a deep, abiding religious belief. Not everyone is in a position to risk their career and to risk termination, to risk retaliation. And I do believe that, in my case, I was very blessed and very fortunate to have the option to do something like that. Because it impacts so many aspects of your life, your lifestyle, your finances. You have to weigh all of these things very carefully. But as I said before, I have no regrets. And I know that we are just called to be obedient. And God is going to vindicate us in the end. We may not see that now, but God rewards those who are obedient. And so ultimately, it's a difficult decision, but I think it's one that I took, in faith and in obedience. And God has been so kind, as you said before. Now I have the privilege of advocating on behalf of children in the state, and so I have no regrets over my decision and the things that I've chosen to do, because now I get to speak with legislators, much like you do, and advocate and encourage them to continue enshrining protections for kids.
No, you're absolutely right. We're talking with Vanessa Savage, president of Protecting Texas Children, a new organization that started really in the past couple of months. And Vanessa is the president of this organization. ProtectingTexasChildren.com is the website. You can find Vanessa on X at @V_Savage, SIVADGE. And, Vanessa, I had a similar issue in my background where I was involved in a lawsuit and almost lost my legal career. It's very difficult for people to understand what that's like. And most people will just bend, right? They'll just compromise. They'll just, deal with it and accept whatever their employer or some other force is trying to tell them to do, because the deck can really be stacked against you. And a lot of times you don't have a lot of friends. People get scared. They run for the hills when these things come up. Look, we have laws in place at the federal level, but sometimes when we recognize an issue that comes up time and again, particularly one at the magnitude that you dealt with, we need to make sure we have that in state law. And I think what we see from President Trump, from the top coming down, the climate, the time that we're in, this time period represents one of the best opportunities to lock this issue down, right? And to have something specific in state law, because these gender ideology issues, while they've kind of been bouncing around and they've been in a variety of different places and touched a lot of different issues, they're still relatively new. And so the religious freedom laws that we have on the books they're more general in nature, sometimes people will make the argument, oh, well, that was passed, though, 10 or 15 years ago. We don't know how it would apply to the issues today, and these different things that we're dealing with. So Senate Bill 619 and other bills we're working on give us an opportunity to say, no, you can't make that argument. This law is being passed now. We want to make it clear that no one has to go to court, and if they do, they know what their protections are, and they're very specific. So, I would imagine, or do you get recognized a little? I mean, the people around the Capitol are like, hey, Vanessa, oh my gosh, Vanessa's here, that recognize you. They've seen you on media interviews and things of that nature. How's that been?
A little bit. I've had a few people that have been so kind and so supportive. And that's the thing, is to your point, there is so much energy and so much enthusiasm here. I do think that the wind is at our backs now when we have so much support. And so, I mean, it's really an exciting time.
No, it is. And, you were talking a little bit about your faith. I know you come from a faith background in your family, probably some great role models and examples from your parents on, how to lean on your faith in times of crisis, things that you've dealt with. I mean, it's not every day like you did that the FBI shows up at your door, and they're knocking. They want answers, right? Like you did, or like, the FBI did for you. I was putting on my social media post earlier this week, yesterday, Dan Bongino is now the deputy director of the FBI. And there's some of the people, and I met him at the RNC last summer, but some of the people that Trump has now in office, things are going to completely flip, or you're going to see a respect for our values and a respect for how those different departments are being run, and your experience, what you dealt with, is going to be so key. We've seen Congressman Chip Roy and other people that have talked about it, and these issues have come up where they recognize we can't let this happen to other people. And the same at the state level. Have you got to meet with, I know you might have met with the lieutenant governor maybe at our event that we had at Faith and Family Day a couple weeks ago. Have you been able to meet the governor yet?
I have not had the privilege yet. But
okay,
hopefully...
we're doing that this session. All right, I'm going to put that on our list of people that you're going to get to meet, but not just for a handshake. I think he would really appreciate your experience in knowing how important it is for people like you to step forward, and for him to get an opportunity to acknowledge and probably say thank you for, your courage.
I mean, I would be so thrilled. And yes, all of President Trump's appointments and his picks for the Justice Department, for the FBI, I could not be more thrilled. And I'm so excited to see what's to come.
Well, in his address a couple of weeks was 2-3 weeks ago, one of the things he talked about was, and I'm going to, chop up the quote. There's a great graphic. I think we've been using it, so I should have the quote memorized. But where he talked about, children being a gift from God, and the way that they were made is beautiful and wonderful. And really, the point he was making is, God made you male or female, and for people to embrace that and to be comfortable with that, right? And to see it as a blessing and not something that they have to change or is some reason that they've got to get involved in these different procedures. And it's interesting because we're seeing reports come out now that is making it clear that these procedures where kids are transitioning from one sex to another is having devastating psychological consequences, not to mention some of the physical things that, they're irreversible damage that it does to their bodies. We've seen Chloe Cole and other people talk about that. We're halfway through the session, so hold on, Vanessa. We're just kind of getting warmed up to give you an idea of what it's going to be like. You've heard me talk about this a lot. I'll say hurry, being at the Capitol's hurry up and wait. But it's all of a sudden, well, I don't say all of a sudden, but you're going to see in the next couple of weeks, things are going to almost be on fast forward, right? And it's going to be a test. And you've got a great temperament, okay, from what I can tell so far, right? You got a great temperament, and it's going to put all of us to the test, because really a key to see who cannot get rattled, who cannot lose their cool because, until the gavel falls on the last moment of the session, there's still an opportunity to get done. So I just want to give you an idea of a little bit more to expect, and I think you'll handle it well. But it creates a great opportunity to get bills like Senate Bill 619 passed. Did you get to meet Senator Sparks on Tuesday or any of his team?
I did, yes. He was very kind, and he invited me to testify on behalf of his bill, so deeply grateful for him.
Yeah, no, look, and this is an important bill. We got to spend some time with him and his staff over the past couple of years, got some great supporters that live in his district out there in Midland, Odessa, and West Texas. And look, this will be a signature piece of legislation for him if we can continue to get it moving. I think we'll be fine in the Senate. We got Tom Oliverson in the House, who's been a tremendous leader on this issue. So, the chances are very good, but we got to dig in and do our work. All right. I know you got some other places to go, and you're a block from our state capitol, so we want to get you back in the game, but really appreciate all the work you've been doing so far. Love that you've got this new organization, Protecting Texas Children, and you did a phenomenal job testifying the other day, and we're appreciative that you are our guest today on the Texas Values Report.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great conversation with Vanessa. I too get encouraged when I see her around the Capitol, those new faces, young faces, more people that are part of the process that understand what it's about, the value of it, the gravity of it. And, they're not there to become a social media star. And I'm not trying to be negative about social media. I post all the time. There's a lot of value to having presence on social media. But the core of why Vanessa is there is to get good work done, to testify, to work with elected officials. And she's got a tremendous amount of value with the experience that she's had, in a negative way, right? In a troubling way. But for her to have the courage to say, I'm not going to just stop there, right? We see Riley Gaines have done that. So I was in Lubbock this week. Speaking of Riley Gaines, on Tuesday, the Attorney General's office, state of Texas, has sued the NCAA to stop them or to, hold them accountable for things that they're doing now, but particularly for things they've done over the past couple of years where, there's misleading and sort of deceptive nature of their work, calling women's sports women's when they're allowing male athletes like Leah Thomas, Will Thomas to compete, right? Blair Fleming at San Jose State is a male volleyball player who for over a year was sharing an apartment and sometimes a hotel room with a female athlete. Brooke Slusser never told her, was deliberately, consciously hiding and doing things to hide his male appearance and genitalia. Okay, sorry to be a little bit more specific about that, but so the court case is about the state of Texas saying enough. We're going to hold the NCAA accountable. The things that they've done are a violation of state law. They're misleading people that these sports are about, are women's divisions when they're allowing men's. They have a division called mixed, and also to make it clear that they're saying that their policy matches up with what Trump has asked for, but we think that there's some loopholes there, and we're not, people are not confident the NCAA is going to do the right thing on this and make sure that there's not a male competing. Charlie Baker's out there trying to suggest there's a small amount of athletes as if it's not a big deal to worry about. They're also saying, the NCAA is saying, we don't, we have a policy that we don't take birth certificates that have been changed. But there are birth certificates in certain states where they will alter them and they won't there's no information for you to have access to know that they've been altered. So there's a lot of reason to be concerned. But I was in the courtroom. This is what I want you to know about this hearing. The most important thing about this court case was that the NCAA had to answer some hard questions. They had to sit in front of these phenomenal and courageous female athletes who were telling their stories about how the NCAA failed them, absolutely failed them, all right? Brooke Slusser was sharing an apartment with Blair Fleming, who was a male athlete on the women's volleyball team at San Jose State, and Brooke is from Texas, from the North Texas area, but went to college out of state. And her mother was there testifying. And Brooke talked about how she shared a hotel room for, several times and undressed in front of this male athlete countless times. Those were her words, right? She couldn't even remember how many times it was. It was so often that happened. And she stumbled upon Blair's backpack in the hotel room bathroom that they were sharing one time and saw this item called a tuck kit. That's how she found out that this was a male player. A tuck kit is some type of device and, stuff that these male athletes use or males use to tuck in, if you would imagine. I'm trying not to get too graphic here, but to shield or to really fool people, cover up parts of their body so you can't tell that they have male genitalia. I mean, that's deliberate on this guy's part, okay? She called him a dude at one point, okay? However you want to refer to Blair and some of these athletes, they know that they're male, and they know they're deliberately deceiving, being dishonest to their fellow athletes on the team. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody at that university was aware at San Jose State that Blair Fleming was a male student who was, dressing up and trying to convince people that he was a woman. And, the NCAA is benefiting from this. They know that their policy and their lack of public statements on this before was allowing these things to continue to happen. So what a blessing. Riley Gaines testified by video. I had to leave before the hearing was over. Unfortunately, the judge ruled against the state of Texas, but this was just a preliminary matter. The case is far from over, and the NCAA is going to continue to feel the heat. Kylie Allens was another athlete that was there. She was a University of Kentucky swimmer just after Riley Gaines. So, women and their families, college athletes, they're getting more and more courageous and confident about confronting the NCAA and these other bad actors on these issues. It was a pleasure and honor to be there to support the Attorney General's office on such an important lawsuit. I'm out of time. We'll be in Irving later to help stop gambling. We're at the Capitol every day. Only faith and family organization that has someone at the Capitol every day of the legislative session. Just some of the many reasons why you should consider donating to Texas Values. You can do that at our website, txvalues.org. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We really need your donations, okay? The work is getting heavy. The expenses are adding up. We need you to step up. We have a $2 million annual budget collectively with our two organizations. So go to txvalues.org, make that tax-deductible donation today. And that's how together we can protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.